Have you ever felt like ADHD or autism almost explains your life, but not quite? Like certain traits fit, but the full picture still feels off. Maybe you see yourself in both, but not fully in either. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone and you're not imagining it. You might just be ADHD. So today, I'll explain what ADHD really is and why it's so hard to recognize, even though you've been living as ADHD your whole life. And to do that, we need to lay a real foundation, starting with what makes ADHD so different from what most people expect. When most people hear ADHD, they picture two sets of independent traits. One for autism, one for ADHD, happening separately, almost like you're switching between two modes. But that's not what it's like inside your brain. The traits don't stay separate. They collide, they reshape each other, and they create struggles that don't fit cleanly into either category. You're not flipping back and forth between two ways of being. You're living inside their collision. And because that collision doesn't match the typical picture of autism or ADHD individually, it's incredibly easy for people to completely miss what's actually going on. Take impulsivity, for example. ADHD pushes you to act fast, say the thing, start the task, and move before thinking. Autism pulls you back, analyzing, hesitating, and worried about making the wrong move. So sometimes you leap and then second guess yourself halfway through. Other times you freeze and feel trapped by the pressure to get it perfect. It's not that you're switching between ADHD and autism, it's that both instincts are firing at once, pulling you in opposite directions inside the same moment. And from the outside, you just look indecisive when really you're navigating two completely different systems at once. One of the biggest reasons ADHD is so often missed is that some traits actually obscure each other, hiding what's really happening underneath. Take social interaction, for example. ADHD often makes people outgoing, energetic, and fast talking. Autism often brings social anxiety, slower processing, and difficulty picking up on unspoken rules. When these two collide, you might seem socially confident because ADHD impulsivity pushes you forward before anxiety can hold you back. But inside, your autistic side might be scrambling, overthinking every word, and worried you misread something important. From the outside, you look bold and engaged, but inside, you're already on the verge of shutdown. In a lot of cases, it's the visible energy of ADHD that obscures the quieter autistic struggles underneath. This makes it harder for other people to recognize what's really happening. And that's a huge reason why so many people spend decades feeling like something is off, but never finding an explanation that fits. When you're living with ADHD, it's not just that traits overlap or get confused, it's that sometimes they're actively pulling you in opposite directions inside your own brain. Living with ADHD means living with constant internal conflict. One part of you craves spontaneity. Another demands predictability. You want to impulsively say yes, but you also fear committing to something you can't control. You need stimulation to stay engaged, but too much input overwhelms you. It's exhausting because it's not just a battle between you and the world, it's a battle happening inside of you all the time. You're trying to be flexible and structured, fast and careful, spontaneous and scripted, and because the tension is invisible from the outside, people often don't realize how much work you're doing just to hold it together. Even everyday decisions, what to wear, what to eat, how to respond to a message can trigger this tug of war. It's not indecision, it's two fundamentally different neurological priorities competing for control. And once you understand this, well, your inconsistency starts to make a lot more sense. Even when you start learning about ADHD and autism separately, there's another trap waiting: misunderstanding overlap. Just because two different experiences can share the same name doesn't mean they feel anything alike inside your brain. Executive dysfunction is a great example of this. In ADHD, it's scattered. You lose track, forget often, and move impulsively from task to task. In autism, it's stuckness. You freeze, you overanalyze, you delay because the path isn't 100% clear yet. When you're AuDHD, you might leap into 5 different projects at once, only to freeze halfway through, paralyzed by the pressure to get each one exactly right. Even though they share the same label, executive dysfunction in autism and ADHD feel completely different. But it doesn't stop there. Take emotional regulation, for example. ADHD emotions surge quickly, frustration, shame, excitement, all rearing up within seconds. Autistic emotions simmer, building deeper, slower, sometimes surfacing hours or even days later. As a result, in the AuDHD brain, you might explode with frustration immediately, then still be processing the social fallout days later. From the outside, emotional struggles like these can look the same, but living inside them feels heavier, messier, and harder to carry. Overlap doesn't make things easier. It often means you're carrying 2 different kinds of challenges at the same time. And if you've ever wondered, why does it feel like everything hits me harder than it should? It's because the weight you're carrying is heavier than most people ever realize. This brings up another really common and very understandable question. Is this the ADHD part of me or the autism part of me? Wanting to sort out where traits come from makes sense. You want to understand your experience. You want clarity. You want to feel like you finally make sense to yourself. And sometimes you can spot patterns. For example, sensory sensitivities often lean autistic. Boredom-driven impulsivity often leans ADHD. But so much of the AuDHD experience doesn't land neatly on one side or the other. You might impulsively share something personal, an ADHD trait, and then immediately freeze and script your next few sentences to repair the conversation, which is an autistic trait. You might hyperfocus for hours because ADHD locks you onto something exciting, while autism locks you onto anything familiar and comforting. You might need schedules and structure, a feature of autism, but impulsivity ditches those systems the second they start to feel too restrictive, a response that reflects ADHD spontaneity. Traits blur together, they amplify each other, and they create new reactions you wouldn't see with just one diagnosis. As a result, trying to bucket everything separately often leaves you feeling more confused because you're not switching between 2 identities. You're living at the intersection. Once you stop trying to split yourself apart, something clicks into place. You realize you're not bad at being autistic, you're not bad at being ADHD. You're AuDHD, and that's different. You start to understand why structure both saves you and stresses you out, why you need plans and resist them, why you crave people and burn out around them. And you finally see why strategies that help typical ADHD or autistic individuals often fall flat for you. It's not because you're failing, it's because your brain is working in 2 different, beautiful, conflicting ways at once. When you know that, you can stop trying to fix yourself to fit into categories that were never built for you. You can start building supports that match the brain you actually have. It doesn't make life effortless, but it makes life understandable. And that changes everything. AuDHD isn't just autism and ADHD combined. It's an entirely different internal experience. It's what happens when 2 powerful ways of processing the world interact, collide, and reshape each other every single day. And now you finally have a language for it, a way to see yourself clearly. And that's where real understanding begins. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time.